Today's show, we are joined by Bobby Blanco from MASNsports.com. And the main question that we will be tackling is, can James Wood and Dylan Crews carry this Nationals team into the postseason in 2025, or will they need help?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11, and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. And of course, this is Locked On Nationals. You can search Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, including on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and of course, over on YouTube as well for the video version of the show. And again, hit that subscriber button, drop a comment, drop a thumbs up, drop a review, whatever you want to do. We will be happy with that. We are joined by Bobby Blanco today from MASNsports.com. We'll discuss the Yankees being down 3-0 against the Dodgers in the World Series. I had the Yankees winning the World Series heading into this series, so it's not looking like that's going to happen this season. So we'll discuss that in the third segment for a quick conversation there. And who will have the better overall career, James Wood or Dylan Crews? I'm intrigued to see what Bobby says about that. I've got my answer as well. We'll see if we have the same one, see if we match there. But can James Wood and Dylan Crews carry the Nationals into the postseason in 2025? Before we answer that question, Bobby, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineups. PrizePicks, run your game. Bobby, how are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Ryan. Good to see you again. Football team is 6-2, so there's not much to complain about right now.
I know the football team in town. They are the ones to talk about. I'm not going to lie. Being 6-2, Jaden Daniels. We were talking about it before today's show, but we are Locked On Nationals on this show. You cover baseball.
Well, to tie it back to the Nationals, did you see after that Hail Mary on Sunday, the Commanders tweeted that video of Ryan Zimmerman being like, "I don't know, I blacked out and then we won."
Yeah, I did see that, actually. That was really cool. Also, Jaden Daniels wearing the curly W hat in the post-game presser.
A couple guys were wearing Nats hats in the locker room, actually, I saw.
Yeah, the curly W brand, man.
Yeah, it's a different time. I mean, we obviously know the Nats have a special relationship with the Capitals and the Wizards, the Mystics, DC United, and the Spirit are down the street. But, for years, mostly because of the previous football team owner, the football team and the baseball team or the rest of the teams didn't really interact. And then now all of a sudden, they held that crossover night last year for both games. And so we're seeing some unity amongst all of the DC sports teams, Nats and football team included. Yeah.
And it's great to see that, but we do have to get some business here, Bobby, because the question that I am bringing to you today is, can James Wood and Dylan Crews carry the Nats into 2025? I'll answer this first real quick. This is like saying, let's say the Nationals don't add a veteran bat, like a big stabilizing bat in the middle of your lineup, like a Pete Alonso or a Christian Walker. Let's say they don't add someone like that. Can James Wood and Dylan Crews carry this Nationals team into the postseason? I will say yes to this. The reason why I will say yes, I'm not saying that they will do this if the Nationals do not go sign a veteran bat. I think they absolutely should. We both discussed that is their first need this offseason. But I think if Dylan Crews and James Wood both reach their ceiling, let's say they do, and it's a very possible thing, by the way, and even then, if Dylan Crews gets to somewhere close to his ceiling alongside James Wood, let's say he has a 900 OPS, and Dylan Crews has like an 850 OPS, and he's hitting over 300, whatever it is, I think that there's a possibility that these two guys just could be the face of the organization, which, by the way, that's the expectation at this point. But if you take both these guys at the peak of their powers, I do think they could carry this Nationals team into postseason contention in 2025. There's a ton of moving parts that need to be fixed as well. Who's going to be your future third baseman at this point until Brady House is ready? Who's going to be added to the rotation? Who will come into the bullpen? there's a lot of different question marks. Will Keibert Ruiz come back and finally kind of be consistent in his career? We don't know the answer to these questions at this point, but I think if James Wood and Dylan Cruz were to go into 2025 at the top of their game, I do think there is a road where they are the ones carrying this Nationals team without a veteran bat. But again, that is if everything goes right. That is if they reach the tip top of their ceiling. So what do you make about Dylan Cruz and James Wood carrying the Nats into a postseason spot in 2025?
It's a tough question to unpack because, like you said, there's so many moving parts. I mean, this isn't basketball, right? This isn't like you just pair LeBron James and, name some other superstar, Kyrie Irving, and you walk to a championship appearance. Like, it doesn't work in baseball. I mean, James Wood and Dylan don't pitch, and that's the whole other half of the game that you need to focus on. So it is a lot to unpack. Baseball, probably amongst the four major sports, is probably the hardest for a single individual or two individual players to carry a full team. But, just to play ball, if you're saying can they be like the two best players on a team that makes a surprise postseason appearance? Yes, they can be. I think a lot of things have to go right. I mean, let's just say for the sake of argument, they don't add the roster as it is right now. Because if we're talking about they do make the addition to the rotation and a power bat, then you would think if they make the postseason next year, one if not both of those guys would also be involved in carrying this team to the postseason. So for the sake of this argument, let's say they don't do that and the roster is as it is. Yes, I think Dylan and James can be the two best players on this team, the most consistent players on this team. But when it comes to making a postseason appearance, you mentioned Keibert Ruiz. How does C.J. Abrams bounce back after the way his season ended? Is Luis Garcia Jr. for real and going to be an everyday second baseman? I mean, he had a great season, but can you repeat that? Can you get a little more offense from Jacob Young? Can you get from some more power somewhere else? I mean, that's the main thing, right? That's why we talk so much about adding to this rotation and look at the two teams left standing. I mean, the Dodgers and the Yankees are two of the best teams in baseball in terms of hitting home runs. So I think it'd be very difficult as the roster stands for James and Dylan to carry this team to a postseason. I think they can be the two best players on a postseason team, but I think they also need some help. That shouldn't be the expectation going into next year. I don't think anyone should be going in, well, we've got James and Dylan at the major league level now, so we should be a postseason team. That's not how it works. That's not a fair expectation to put on either of those guys, especially when James played, 79 games, less than 80 games, and Dylan played 31. Like, that's just not a sample size. So that's a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't think they can carry this current team as constructed to the postseason, nor should they be able, or nor should they be expected to. But I do think if some pieces are added, they can be the kind of the face of the next postseason team because, let's just face it, the Nats are banking on James and Dylan being their two best players moving forward, along with C.J. Abrams, Keibert Ruiz. So, yes, they can be the best players on the next Nationals playoff team. I just don't know if it's next year, and I don't know if they carry it. And if they do, good Lord, we have a whole different conversation to talk about because we got two superstars in the making.
Yeah. I mean, I think those are going to be some of the bigger questions. I think the root of this conversation and why I kind of thought of it was without them spending in free agency, this is going to be the reality of the Nationals. And by the way, it's not that far-fetched, in my opinion, that the organization says, you know what, meaning the organization, meaning ownership, they say, we've got two stars here in the making. I think we can go out there, not really spend, maybe make a strategic trade on the market, get a starting pitcher in here and or a bat, and we'll roll with whatever and see what the Nationals can do because we believe in James Wood. He was the number one prospect in all of baseball. Dylan Cruz is currently the number one prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. There is a real possibility to where this is what the Nationals' future will be like. And I don't think it's too fair, if I'm just being honest. Again, my hypothetical is if both these guys reach their max potential in 2025, if we see the best or close to the best version of Dylan Cruz and James Wood, then I think we're going to have that conversation. And I do think that is a possibility where, CJ Abrams also takes a step up. Luis Garcia Jr. continues from his consistent 2024. Keibert Ruiz does well. The pitching, there's another arm added to the rotation. Mackenzie Gore takes another step up. Irvin, DJ Hers, and Parker as well is in that conversation. I think of all those things, it's a lot. Then we could be talking about a potential postseason race here in DC, led by James Wood and as well as Dylan Cruz. But those two guys are going to be the names to talk about this offseason for the Nationals fan base. And Bobby, it's October 29th. Let's get into it. Who will have the better career? We'll discuss that. I'll have you answer that first after we tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. And of course, when I tell you guys about FanDuel, all I want you to know is that you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You may think that the Commanders win this weekend. You can get that as your first bet. Or maybe the Dodgers, they put away the Yankees tonight, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now we get back into it with Bobby Blanco from NASNsports.com. And Bobby, the question that we are tackling for the second segment of today's program is, who will have the better career overall, James Wood or Dylan Cruz? The floor is yours.
I'm going to go James Wood. I think he just has a higher ceiling. I think Dylan is going to be a great everyday Major League Baseball player. I just think James Wood has more of an upside in terms of being a superstar potential, both offensively and defensively. I think James can be the guy that gets close to 40 homers a year, steals, 40 plus bags, kind of put, not Ohtani-like, but like kind of along those lines of, he's got power, he can hit for average, he can steal bases, he can play strong defense. I mean, he's got all those tools in his bag. And yes, so does Dylan, but I don't think Dylan has the power potential. I think Dylan's going to be more of a guy, like a 2020 guy, just consistently getting on base, consistently stealing bases. Every once in a while he'll pop into a home run, but you're going to see a lot of doubles, maybe triples from him. And that's great. I mean, that's all-star level production, but I'm talking about James Wood being MVP level production. So I'm going to say James has an overall better career, but we're picking nits here because I think both of them are going to be studs for the Nationals for years to come, and hopefully a part of their next winning team, next team that is consistently year in and year out competing for division titles, World Series championships. So it's a good problem to have. It's a good question to have. It's fun because I don't really see any downside to either of them. Like something horrible, knock on wood, would have to happen for neither of them to reach their at least all-star level potential. I think they both have at the minimum all-star level potential with some MVP potential in there, but I think that leans more towards James. So I'm going to say James has a better overall career, but that does not mean that Dylan is not going to be, could go down as one of the best Nationals of all time.
Yeah, and you know what? My answer to this question, it is James Wood, but it would not surprise me at all if it's Dylan Cruz. And I talk a lot about ceilings on this show because, when you're in a rebuild, you have to look at these prospects, and it's like you want to look at their ceilings and say, man, DJ Hers could be great. His ceiling is so high. James Wood, a potential 5-tool kind of player, great on the base path, great at the plate, obviously shows power, can hit for contact, just a great player. Then you look at Dylan Cruz as well. He was promised to be like this 5-tool prospect. You've seen flashes of all 5 tools so far. through his first month in the big leagues. And it's tough not to look at Dylan Cruz and say, this guy will be the better player because, again, all those tools are right there. And I feel like we have probably seen a little bit more of that than even a James Wood type. Now, James Wood at the plate has been better. He's also had more opportunities. And for whatever reason out there, Dylan Cruz just has not hit all too well up in the majors at this point. But answering the question, like, I do think it will be James Wood. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen it already. I have seen him have big seasons. I've seen him have big production at the plate. I've seen him look solid at times defensively, even though I would love to get him out of that left field corner because it just is not working out up to this point in time. But looking back at Dylan Cruz, though, like, this is going to be a kind of a branch from what this conversation actually is here, Bobby. But, like, I've seen Nationals fans kind of poo-poo the fact that Dylan Cruz wasn't all that great in the minors. Wasn't all that great in the majors either. He had a few great games. You saw a lot of potential from him. His first hit was a bomb. I mean, that's what you love to see from the kid. But overall, Nationals fans seem to not be as high on Dylan Cruz as what they were this time last year. Like, do you think we ever see that version of Dylan Cruz that we were all promised, being the number 2 overall pick? Like, the guy was the best college hitter to come out of the game for who knows how long. It's been a long time, I can tell you that much. But do you think we ever see that version of Dylan Cruz where people are talking about, like, yeah, this guy could be an MVP candidate someday? Because if so, the Nationals will have James Wood, who I certainly think could be an MVP candidate. Then on top of that, you've also got Dylan Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. You have to remember, like I said, he's only played 31 major league games. This was his first full season in any form of professional baseball. He was only drafted last year and only spent the last half of the season in pro ball. He flew up to Double-A and then struggled. I mean, he kind of is going along the same path that James did. You remember, coming into this year, we were talking about James, like, well, yeah, he had a really good year last year, but he also struck out, 150 plus times. So there were some concerns there. And then coming into this year, he fixed it. And he was, once he got up here, one of the Nationals' best players every day. So I think you can see that kind of similar trajectory for Dylan going into next year. He's got his first full season of pro ball under his belt, which ended in the major leagues. So he's got that experience going into spring training. I think you were down in spring training with us. Seeing Dylan playing in those major league games that early on, you could tell he was pressing a little bit. He wasn't quite ready. I mean, defensively, he was fine. Offensively, he was really struggling at the plate. Off-speed stuff was mixing him up. He couldn't keep up with the fastball, and he was pressing. He wanted so badly to show that he belonged. He wanted so badly to show that he could make the major league roster on opening day. And then, obviously, he wasn't ready. And then once we got to later in the season, he was, and he came up and he did fine. He did fine for what he was what he was on path to do. So I think going into next year, you could see kind of a similar thing. He may have a better spring training now that he's got a month plus of major league activity, and maybe he makes the roster out of spring training. Maybe he doesn't, and that's okay. We can see him back up, I would say, along the same timeline that we saw James this year, if not sooner. It depends what they do this offseason. Maybe they do add a corner outfielder power bat, and they're like, we can give Dylan some more time at AAA before bringing him back up in June or July, wherever it may be. So, yeah, I still think that there's plenty of time for him to figure that out, for people to get rehyped for him, because he is going to be one of their best players, and he is going to be a face of this franchise moving forward. He's the flashes that he showed in those 31 games were enough for me to be like, this guy has it. It just hasn't come all together yet. And once it does, he's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, and I agree with that sentiment there because, like, the kids say nowadays, Bobby, what the saying is, I'm just passing along the information, is that Dylan Cruz has aura. And he kind of does.
Aura.
Like, he has some aura to him. I mean, like, the guy is a big name. I mean, unfortunately James Wood is the best player on this team. In my opinion, should be the face of this organization. But, like, if the Nationals play Sunday Night Baseball, Dylan Cruz is going to be on that promo screen. Like, Dylan Cruz is the bigger name. the more national name, at least at this point in time, until James Wood really kind of breaks out on a national stage, maybe in a postseason somewhere in the future here soon. But I think Dylan Cruz at this point in time is kind of like the more marketable name sitting here today on October 29th. But this time next year, we could be talking about a completely different story, because I think we all know in town here that James Wood is overall the better player, and I think both of us think that he will have the better career. And I think Dylan Cruz will be great as well. I mean, I expect multiple All-Stars from him, Silver Sluggers. I think Dylan Cruz could be one of the best outfielders in all of baseball if he reaches his tip-top ceiling here. So it's an interesting conversation to have. We'll tackle that for the next few years here on Locked On Nats. But, Bobby, let's talk about the World Series, man. 3-0. The Yankees, they're done. I can tell you that much. But let me tell you guys about some of our friends over at PrizePicks. And, of course, when I talk about PrizePicks, you guys need to know that PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. And of course, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and my home state, Virginia. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks puts its member first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And Bobby, the Yankees are down 3-0 in the World Series against this Dodgers team. Let me tell you this. I was not expecting this. I knew on paper the Dodgers were the better team, but this has been a complete, domination by the LA Dodgers so far. Freddie Freeman has hit home runs in all 3 of the games so far. He has been dominant. I mean, just killing them, getting the Dodgers out in front. He had the big grand slam to walk off game 1. Game 2, back in LA, he just smoked the ball yet again. Even Juan Soto did as well. Our guy, we love him. But, I mean, I'm stunned. I'm stunned at this point in time. But what do you make of the World Series so far?
I think, I'm stunned too. I think for how much as this series was talked about, this is the best thing for baseball. I think this is the worst way it could go, is a potential sweep or over in 5. I think,
dude, I'm sorry.
Good.
Sorry. This has been like one of the most hyped World Series ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it ends in a sweep, oh my God,
Rob Manfred,
it's the worst thing that could happen. And I mean, that's kind of what it, even then, is it worse? I would rather see the Dodgers sweep them at this point rather than going 5 games and just having this bleed go on for the Yankees.
A slow bleed.
It's just I don't, just end it. We all know it's going to happen. Just end it tonight. I don't know, man. Sorry. Continue your point.
Well, I think a sweep would be the worst thing that could happen, or the Dodgers win in 5. I think that's honestly the worst thing for baseball as a popularity thing, because this is the most hyped World Series, in my lifetime, probably since the first Subway Series in 2000. It's terrible for baseball if it ends this way. I mean, congrats to the Dodgers if they win it. Here's my thing. The Yankees, and Nats fans know this, playoff baseball, playoff series, especially games, a best of 7 series, all about momentum. The Yankees, not just that they lost game 1, but how they lost game 1, I think completely took the wind out of their sails. They blew 2 leads late in that game, in the 8th inning and then in the 10th, and then giving up the grand slam walk-off. I mean, you can look at it and be like, all right, that's one game. You know, best of 7 series are always mini series, right? You have 2 games, 3 games, and then 2 games. So you got to win mini series to win the whole thing. So you shake off the first game, you got to win game 2. Obviously, does not happen, and then they get blown out at home last night. Pretty much, the Yankees don't score till the 9th inning. So it's just Aaron Judge hasn't done anything. Juan Soto is doing his best. I think you're seeing, and Ohtani hasn't actually done that much for the Dodgers, but Freddie Freeman can't stop hitting home runs. Mookie Betts is putting together solid at-bats. Muncy, Kiki Hernandez, everyone on that lineup is contributing outside of Ohtani. Whereas for the Yankees, you're seeing some holes in the lineup. Yes, they have a lot of good role players to complement Soto, Judge, Stanton, but they're not getting the equal production that the Dodgers are getting from their lineup. And then the pitching has just been so much better. I mean, I think that the Yankee starters are better than the Dodger starters, but Flaherty, Yamamoto, and Buehler have been lights out, and you can't give those guys who have struggled this postseason easy outs, and the Yankees have. But look, you're coming home down 2-0. You get 3 games at home. You know, you need to win at least 2 of those 3, right? So technically, the Yankees, if they can win the next 2 games, that changes the whole series, and then the momentum shifts. And then you got to win 2 more, obviously back in LA. But for right now, Yankees 1 game at a time. You got to get back to LA somehow, and that's by winning these next 2 games. You can't win game 5 without winning game 4. So I know it's only ever happened once, and it happened to the Yankees. So maybe karma's a weird fecal friend, and it comes back and they can pull off 4 in a row. I just don't see it happening. I just hope the Yankees somehow get it back to LA and kind of reignite some more interest back into this series, because I agree with you. If the Dodgers win tonight or tomorrow, I mean, that's such a letdown for what was billed as the biggest World Series in like 40 years.
Yeah. And you know what? It's looking like it's going to be a letdown at this point, but Bobby, when you join the show, it's never a letdown. So,
oh, Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate that, man.
I know.
Happy to do so.
Of course. And he is Bobby Blanco. I'm Ryan Clary. You can catch Bobby Blanco. You can catch his work, mastonsports.com. Catch him over on Twitter as well, at Bobby_Blanco. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Hopefully the series gets extended tonight, but also Dodgers just end it. Sweep the Yankees. We'll catch you on the flip side. Have a good one.